Thank you. Dorje Jange Gomon Nyorando Jo Sanje Judan Zoje Jonam Lai Janjo Bardo Gyamtso Dage Jinzo Jembe Zanam Rola Benjer Sanje Dromba Jo Sanje Judan Zoje Jonam Janjo Bando Dane Gyamtso Dage Jinzo Jembe Zanam Rola Benjer and Romba Joy Sanje Chudam Zanje Jonam Hai Janjo Bardo Dane Gyamtso Dage Jinzo Jembe Zanam Rola Benjer Zanje Romba Jo Zemjen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Judan Temba Dorje Dunga Dan Dunga Je Judan Rawa Dorje Dunga Maybe Damba Dame Rawa Dorje Nyering Jada Nyedan Rawa Tonyam Jambola Nemba George Semjen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Judan Dembar George Dungal Dan Dungal Ji Judan Rawa George Dungal Mebe Dew Dame Rawa George Nyering Jada Nyedan Rawa Tonyam Jambola Nemba George Semjen Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Judan Tempar George Dungal Dan Dungal Judan Rawar George Dungal Mebe Dewa Damba Dan Medrawar George Nyering Chadam Rave Danyam Jambola Neba George Dada Zemjen Tamche Lo Chuzun Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Lamdo Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Lam Chulba Sawar Jinje Lamdo So Lama Yeshe Sun Charwar Jinje Lamdo So Dada Zemjen Tamche Lo Chusun Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Lam Chulba Sawar Jinje Lamdo So Lama Yeshe Sun Charwar Jinje Lamdo So Dada Zemjen Tamche Lo Chusun Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Lamdo Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Lam Chulpa Sawar Jinje Lamdo So Yeshe Sun Rawar Jinje Lamdo So Mo Jen Yun Jin No Jang Sam Be Ma Gezara Dombo La Yan Zen Jongeng Udunye Bema June Jezon Gordo Conro Mombengor and Jezon Dandrum Jinje Lamje Jezo Nenjo Dira Jimbo Lan Ron Dala Wang Jingo Gang Don Lord Bar Jezo jo no mo ngo ro zo ma won ben zra go ra ma ma ze de hom om ben zra go ra be man de reng za ben zra za ma ya za za zar va sind bala hum ahre ma hare ni zaran zare indarem rem za za goro gandro zo je je dan ra me be bu nam la le la ku ye jin je lo nga la sung ye jin je lo lan tung je jin je lo wang je ku lo wa re jin je je dam ba re jin je lo lam je jong ba re jin je lo je dam ba jin je lo ma ben zra gur be man de ban da gin gaya am begin za om waga a begin za a sin da a begin za hom sarva a begin za re. Good morning, everyone. We ended, or came close to the end yesterday. During the questions and answers, one of you asked about the purpose of all these stages, such as the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. And I didn't answer the question because I said that's where we were going to begin this morning, and so that is where we're going to begin this morning. For those following in the text, we're at the bottom of page 47, the last paragraph. Our text says, through these means of accomplishment, the inferior or intermediate yogi will, through imaginary engagement, complete mere approach by number or approach by time, through which all aspects of interdependence are arranged, respectively. Generally, we have 3 ways of deciding how much of a practice to do before moving on to its next stage or the next practice. And these are signs, time, and number. So, for example, well, he's going to get into the details of this. But the reason for this is that through, and we mostly do time or number because we're mostly not those of the highest capacity. But the point is that the recommended time or prescribed number of mantras will achieve, is designed to achieve a certain effect. Now, the reason why some people would judge the completion of the practice or reaching stability in the practice, at least by signs, is that those of the highest capacity would achieve the result more quickly. So it's not that they necessarily would do more of it. They might. Many great practitioners will spend their entire lives in retreat, but they may need less than most of us. So that's why there are these three ways of measuring. Approach by sign and certain completion are achieved by a superior yogin. Ideally, what that means is that you achieve complete awakening through the practice. And while we have so many different practices and within practices, stages of practice, we must not forget, it's helpful not to forget, that any one of these, done properly, is complete. In any case, during the accomplishment, cease all mundane physical activities, all conversation and mundane speech, and all meaningless thinking, recollection, and bewilderment. First, stay on your seat without moving or losing your physical posture. Second, by staying silent continuously except for repetition and liturgy, your vigor in these will be uninterrupted. Third, by being without an instant's distraction, your mind will one-pointedly cultivate the samadhis of generation and completion. Establish the ground of accomplishment with these three. So that's all about the stage of approach, which may be done in a group intensive, or may be done in personal retreat. So, for example, if you were going to do the full retreat on the Guru Rinpoche practice that we do on the 10th day, you would first say probably 1,200,000 of the first mantra. And then according to Lama Yeshe, half of the second one, and then half of that of the third one, and then I don't know how much for the fourth one. The minimum approach by number is 400,000 repetitions. The intermediate functional approach is 700,000. The best is 100,000 for each syllable, even in the case of long mantras. However, it can be said at 1,200,000. The very best is to continue the repetition and accomplishment until the signs are complete. That is excellent. So in other words, the really best way to do any of these practices is to keep on doing it full time, day after day, until you achieve awakening, or at least until you have an authentic and reliable vision of the deity. But there are lots of signs short of that. The signs include auspicious dreams of purification, such as of exuding blood and pus from your body, or of washing and donning white clothing, and dreams of attainment, such as of the rising of the sun and moon, of climbing a mountain peak, of acquiring supports of body, speech, and mind, of seeing deities' faces, and so on. Seeing these things in meditation experience is also a sign. The actual experience of fine scents, rainbow light, hearing the sound of mantra, seeing the faces of gurus and deities, the emergence of fine fragrances, light, and flame from the accomplishment supports and materials, and the boiling of the vase water or the amrita are all signs. When these occur, receive siddhi. So you'll notice, for example, that when we do the 10th day Guru Rinpoche practice, there's a page and a half that we leave out, and that's the receiving of siddhi. We go straight from the end of the Tsokand and concluding Torma offerings to the final offerings and confession and so on. The reason for that is that is, according to Lama Yeshe, only done when you complete either a retreat or part of a retreat, or it is also done sometimes by masters before they give the empowerment. You don't try to receive siddhi until the completion of the period of retreat, because you want it to build up. And then at the end of the retreat, you receive siddhi. Now, to bring this back to earth for us, in most of our 5-day, and in the case of Yamantaka, 7-day yearly retreats, you'll notice that on the very last evening, Lama Trotop will have a skull cup filled with Amrita in front of him, and while reciting the mantra with certain additions, siddhi of body, siddhi of speech, siddhi of mind, and so on, continuously we all file up, and he gives us a spoonful of Amrita. Sometimes we're also blessed with a torma, sometimes with a kila. It can vary. They all fundamentally serve the same purpose, so that the deities have actually been brought into this environment. And we have requested them again and again and again for their blessings. Siddhi means attainment, but you can also think of it as what happens when you receive the blessing of your guru and yidam inseparable. It doesn't seem to work as well if you think of the guru and yidam as different. Apparently, if you think of the guru and yidam as different, and especially if you think that the yidam is better or more important, then the most you'll get out of it is mundane siddhi, mundane boons and blessings. So always think of the deity, whichever deity it is, whether it's Guru Rinpoche or Vajrasattva or the White Kachari or Yamantaka or Kila, as inseparable from your guru. So how is the taking of siddhi done? There are two parts to this. First is a fairly elaborate visualization of receiving it from the father and mother deities. And then it gets to the actual physical process of simply going up and receiving the blessing from the presiding Vajra master, which here is Lama Trotop. In order to receive siddhi, warm up the mandala by setting out fine gana chakras, offering tormas, and lamps. Set out siddhi materials such as life tormas, fruit, and amrita. Fruit is considered auspicious because, in part, in both Tibetan and English, and perhaps in other languages too, we use the term fruit to mean a good result of something, and also fruit, like peaches and nectarines. So it's always considered very auspicious to offer fruit both in a feast and as siddhi material. Perform the activity, the liturgy, that evening. At nightfall, begin the repetition and the japa melody. Now this is in the context of a drupchen, or great accomplishment retreat, where it's going on 24 hours a day. Everyone does the 3 daytime sessions and one of the nighttime sessions, and you take shifts. And you're on different shifts at different times because you want to experience all 6 sessions, because as those of you who've done such practices know, the experience of the early night, the middle of the night, and the pre-dawn session can be radically different. At nightfall, begin the repetition and the japa melody, the mantra, which is recited during a drupchen continuously with melody. You have a chorus who are reciting the mantra all the time. It's actually a very beautiful and powerful type of practice. Because each person receives the blessing of each other person's practice, devotion, faith, and bodhicitta. At the end of the night, at dawn, receive siddhi. Receive siddhi from the deities by receiving it from the body, speech, minds, qualities, and activities of the front generation. So that would be, for example, light rays coming from their 5 places, as we do, and we do this each time we do that. So with the White Kachari practice, where we do chant the taking of siddhi. Receive empowerment using the accomplishment supports. At this point, either a concise version of the empowerment, basically what's used for self-empowerment, can be administered by the Vajra master, or the complete empowerment can be given in that context. And next, the visualization. Receive siddhi from the sky of the father and mother through the emission and withdrawal of light rays. The quintessence of all samsara, nirvana, wisdom, and qualities enters the mouths of the father and mother deities. It swirls together in the expanse of their sky and mixes with the amrita in the kapala. Taste that. So that's when the amrita is given to you. The mother absorbs the quintessence of samsara and nirvana, pull it upward through the avaduti, central channel, with the power of the winds, circulate it with physical exercises, and receive the siddhi of undefiled bliss emptiness. Now this is all a bit highfalutin. Someone who is trained in the yogic practices may be able to do that while we're going on with the ritual and so on. But basically for us at this point, it's mostly a matter of receiving the blessings of the deities, body, speech, mind, qualities, and activity, again inseparable from the guru, as described in the particular liturgy. And you'll see each liturgy has its own words describing the taking of siddhi to remind you of what you're focusing on in that context. Receive siddhi from the substances through the emission and withdrawal of light rays. The quintessence of the mandala deities and of all existence and tranquility dissolves into the substances which melt into amrita. Viewing them as a swirling ocean of siddhi, receive it by eating and drinking them. Finally, enter yourself into the mandala and receive the empowerments. During all this, perform fulfillment and confession for the purpose of reconciliation, and a fire offering for the purposes of amendment and alerting the deities to bestow siddhi. If siddhi remains distant, generate fortitude and pure perception. Be vigorous in Gana Chakra. If you have finished the accomplishment without gaining siddhi, repeat it. After the accomplishment is completed, conceal any evidence of it, guard the place, and sustain the yoga of simplicity. Now, the text next turns to something that we definitely do every time we do a group practice involving a feast, which is the meaning of feast practice. The meaning and sequence of the conclusion of activity and the final stages are as follows. First of all, the term Gana Chakra, and Lama Chotop has explained this at length. Gana means a gathering or an assembly. It means, as you'll see, applies to several different things. A chakra means a wheel or a circle. So the most basic or external meaning of it is a gathering circle. The food and drink are the external gana, or feast gathering. So the external gana, or gathering, is the gathering of food and drink. Everybody brings something. The 5 desirable qualities are internal. That means the experience of not just the food and beverages, but if you practice feast with the utmost faith, then it actually transforms your perception of everything you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. So that's internal. The objects of union and liberation are secret. The union of means and knowledge, and through that the eradication of dualism, and the liberation of yourself and, if you can, of others. Everything being the display of wisdom is that alone. So I quoted this yesterday in our Guru Rinpoche feast. It says, everything is the play of the deity. And we're reminded that. The shrine attendant actually says that to remind us just before the feast substances are distributed. That's very important because we have so much trouble with, well, I do, with the endless complexity of this religion. It can be incredibly complex, and several of you have brought that up in your questions. But at heart, unless I'm wrong, I could be wrong, at heart, it's very simple. You know, I quoted Dzongsa Chinzya Rinpoche yesterday as saying, Vajradhara said, everything is a deity. I think that that is the clearest, simplest, least larded with philosophical speculation and unnecessary concepts, presentation of the outlook and practice of Vajrayana. And ultimately, your outlook, your view, and your meditation and your lifestyle should be closely linked, almost inseparable. The understanding is that everything is a deity. The meditation is on everything as a deity. And the conduct is to try to maintain that through correct ethical choices and mindfulness in post-meditation. We may do all of that well, we may do it poorly, but simply making the effort to do that is, I think, of incalculable benefit. Because all external, internal, and secret desirables are gathered and enjoyed together, it is called gana, gathering. Now, the idea here of enjoyment, which is not always made clear, is very important. When you have done a group practice, whether it's one session, as we do on the 10th and 25th days, or many sessions, as we do during our 5- and 7-day retreats, you have asked the deities to take their places in your body. Now, there are 3 aspects to this. The first aspect is that the deities are already in your body. The peaceful and wrathful deities have always been there, and as long as you have a body, always will be. They are what you truly are. We are not what we think we are. We are actually the peaceful and wrathful deities. The second aspect is that we acknowledge that through an act of imagination, by visualizing them and so on. And the third aspect, which is something that one of you asked about yesterday, is that although they're already there, and although we're also acknowledging that through the use of our imaginations, when we ask them to take their place, it adds to it. This was described by the Victor Yungtunpa, who was one of the great masters of the Karma Kagyu and Nyingma traditions, and he breaks it down in this way. Sorry. Okay. Why is this? Because, as the Buddha said, the Buddha is kind of everywhere. I don't want to misquote him, so I don't want to say he literally said he's everywhere, but he may have said that. I just can't think of it. But what he did say is, whenever anyone thinks of him with faith, he is present. Because our faith, in a sense, it doesn't sound nice, summons him. Guru Rinpoche has also said this about him. And this is true of all Buddhas. So when you ask the deities to dwell within your body, they do. Therefore, when you partake of the blessed feast substances, your enjoyment of them is also felt by each of the deities. That is why Yeshe Tsogyal said, of all means of gathering the accumulation of merit, Gana Chakra is supreme. When you eat a delicious strawberry, like we had the last 10th day feast, we had these amazing strawberries. I don't know who brought them, but You're not supposed to fixate on it, but anyway, they were really good strawberries. The pleasure you feel of the taste of that ripe, wonderful strawberry is felt by each and every one of the deities within your body. Therefore, you're making an offering to them. Your body has become a real shrine. With regard to the Trikaya and the field of gathering, the front generation and the guru, who are inseparable, are external. The self-generation and the yidam are internal. The wisdom of awareness expanse is secret. The dakini is very secret. Because deities and human yogis, males and females, are all assembled, it is called samaja, or assembly. Chakra is one word for a gathering. Samaja, which can often mean a society or organization, is another word for it. And now he goes through the actual stages that you will recognize from the text. So basically, if you go back and study this, what you should probably do is take the Guru Rinpoche liturgy that we use on the 10th day and compare it, go through it bit by bit as you go through this. Because what he's doing here is he's explaining in words that as brief as they are, so it would be too long to chant, the meaning of what we do. And understanding the meaning is not important just because understanding is conducive to insight. It's more important because understanding is inspiring. When you understand the value or significance of something, it's no longer a mysterious thing you do every 2 weeks for reasons you're not quite sure of. It becomes a major highlight of your monthly calendar because you know, or at least you believe, that the blessings and benefit are real. First, external, internal, and secret obstructors are banished. The Amrita and Torma are blessed as deities. The field of gathering, all the deities of the 3 roots, is invited. They convene in the form of male and female herukas. Light rays from their bodies, speech, and minds bless the environment as a pure realm, the feast hall as a palace, the feast vessels as bandhas, which means skull cups in this case, the feast substances as wisdom amrita, and the entire assembly as gods and goddesses. These distinguish a Gana Puja. So the blessing of the environment, the feast hall, the practitioners, the substances, is what makes Gana Puja authentic. The difference between Gana Chakra and Gana Puja, Lama Tratop explained fairly recently. Gana Chakra involves the actual pursuit of a fairly advanced yogic, very advanced yogic practices. But even though we may not be capable of that, we're not shut out because Gana Puja is available to us. We can actually do this, and that's why we do it. The first portion, and puja of course means offering. The first portion of the Gana Puja is presented by goddesses of the 5 desirable qualities. It is offered in the form of the 5 desirable qualities, undefiled amrita, and divine food and drink of 100 flavors to the field of gathering, which abides inseparable from the deities of the mandala. Then a second portion, the middle offering, is presented. This is the offering of all that appears and exists, arisen from its ground. Through this, the deities are satisfied, impairments and violations are confessed. The satisfaction is of the bodies, speech, minds, qualities, and activity of the gurus, yidams, dakinis, and dhammapalas. The confession is of all impairments and violations, external, internal, secret, and very secret, of pratimoksha, bodhicitta, and secret mantra, including the samayas of non-existence, non-differentiation, spontaneous presence, singularity, and the 5 fives. The vows mentioned in general are the general vows, the pratimoksha vow, which in a sense, begins with the vow of refuge and continues up to however high you take it, all the way to the vow of a bhikshu or bhikshuni. The bodhisattva vow is the bodhisattva vow of either of the two traditions, extensive deeds or profound view. And the Samaya vows specified here are first those of Dzogchen, non-existence, non-differentiation, spontaneous presence, and singularity. And then the 5 fives, which are the branch Samayas, which Lama Tratab went through at the beginning of the stages of the path teaching, and you can find enumerated in many books on this subject. I don't want to belabor it. These impairments include those of body, speech, mind, and all three together. Now that can be very concerning to hear about all these vows that we can't even remember, let alone know if we're keeping or not. In this context, it's helpful to remember what the learned and accomplished Karma Chambe Rinpoche wrote in his concise essence of the union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. He said, if you see your guru and yidam as inseparable, and you never feel antipathy toward them, you know, you never turn against them, you never hate them, you never resent them, and so on, that just by itself will keep all the billions of samayas. We may not be able to constantly see all appearances as the deity, all sound as mantra, and all thought as wisdom. You may be able to, I'm not. But one thing we can do on a practical level is contemplate the unity of our guru and yidam and feel gratitude. I think the source of devotion is gratitude, because through your practice you start to get better and feel better. That's what we want. We want an answer to suffering. Maybe you even get to the point where you can be of real help to others. Probably. That brings gratitude, because we're naturally grateful, to the person who made this possible. I think that's the starting point, and that's something that practically we can actually work on. Last is the liberation offering. This includes the liberation of external enemies of the 10 types, internal thoughts and kleshas, secret self-fixation, and all very secret habits and absorption. The way to unite all of these is to think that the liberation offering is a little part of the tzok that is removed before the obstructors are expelled, because anyway. Just think that all your selfishness and everyone else's selfishness, all the selfishness there is in the universe is summoned into that piece of dough or torma. It's usually, here it's an oatmeal torma, and liberated into space. It can be transformed into pure space, because that is its nature. That is the nature of everything. These are respectively conquered and liberated externally by weapons and heroic ferocity, internally by means, discernment, and seals of wisdom, secretly by the kila of self-aware discernment, and very secretly by the Vajra-like samadhi. The Vajra-like samadhi is the samadhi of Buddhahood. When the Buddha achieved the Vajra-like samadhi, he became the Buddha. He stopped being Siddhartha Gautam and became Buddha Shakyamuni. And so, if you can do that, then you're good. You got it covered. The external support, so the little offering that is used for this, is blessed and fed to the blazing ones of great splendor. Internal thoughts are purified into wisdom, transcended in great non-conceptual, primordially pure, trans-intellectual liberation beyond limits. That is liberation. After those three offerings, the brother yogis and sister yoginis enjoy the external gana of food and drink. Internally, they enjoy the gana of great bliss, the union of father and mother, means and discernment. Secretly, they offer both the external and internal desirable qualities to their aggregates and elements, the deities within their bodies, pleasing them. During all this, one may, if one wishes, engage in songs and dances of great bliss. Very secretly, the offerings, presenters, and recipients are a primordially pure unity. This is called the offering of that alone. Then the pure leftovers, the individual leftovers, and the bequeathal by the principle of the mandala are gathered. The pure leftovers and the bequeathal are blessed. The wisdom mandala of the leftover recipients is invited and presented with offerings. They then receive the samaya of the primordial single nature of samsara and nirvana. Then the upper and lower are combined. Viewing one's tongue and palate as the father and mother hirukas and one's saliva as the bodhicitta of their union, anoint the leftovers with amrita used to rinse one's mouth. That's done by the Vajra master. The rest of us don't do it. And sometimes it's not done. For example, it's not done during a Yamantaka feast because some of the recipients of the leftovers there are pretas and it could hurt them. Summon the Ginkaras, Lankas, Blazing Ones, Ishvaris, and the other guardians of the mandala's perimeter. Dedicate and offer the leftovers to them. This completes the explanation of Gana Puja. Now, what follows after the Gana Chakra are three procedures, and these are called the proclamation, the earth goddess ritual, and the horse dance, which originally refers to the dance of the deity Hayagriva. And it means a dance of victory over obstacles, victory over your defilements. During an elaborate retreat, the horse dance will involve the shrine attendant jumping up and down, and we all shout, "The gods are victorious, the gods are victorious," and so on. But again, if you go through the liturgy, combined with this book, you'll be able to fit everything. They correspond one-to-one. When necessary, as in contexts such as those of accomplishment and great accomplishment, proclaim the decree of commitment, present offerings to external protectors such as the earth goddesses and guardians of Tibet, and perform the yogic dance of containment. Offer a golden drink to all the wisdom and mundane gods and dakinis who received strict vows from the gurus of the 6 and 9 lineages. We can divide the lineage of the Dzogchen teachings into 3 or into 6 and into 9. The 6 and 9 are the 3, the thought lineage, symbol lineage, and oral lineage, plus the lineages associated with terma or treasure. The lineage of the scrolls, the lineage of the Dakini's entrustment, the lineage of prophetic utterance, and so on. You can read about these. There are lots of books that will describe these in detail. I don't want to overdo the details here. And urge them to remember their samaya. Offer rinsed water, blessed as Amrita, and entrust activity to those who were placed in samaya by the Vidyadharas of India and Tibet in the past, and promise to guard the border between Dharma and non-Dharma. Then, if expanded, perform the ritual for the suppression of obstructors, and perform the dance of splendors so that they cannot arise. That's the horse dance. If abbreviated, contain and restrain external enemies and obstructors under the Torma vessel, which takes the form of the supreme mountain and the 4 continents. Contain all internal sickness, demons, obstacles, and adverse circumstances in the expanse of Dharmata, and restrain them with the equality of thoughts of good and bad. Contain all secret kleshas, the 5 poisons, in the absence of origination, cessation, and dwelling. Restrain them with the display of the five wisdoms, contain that alone, self-fixation and ignorance, in the expanse of the discernment of selflessness and restrain it with the samadhi of awareness display. This whole concept of containment and restraint is that, again, remember that everything here has an external, in our experience, largely symbolic, but also literal, an external, internal, and secret level. So ultimately, what we are trying to contain is our kleshas and self-fixation. We use ritual to supplement meditation. And we do so because human beings like ritual. Every society for at least the last 5,000, now 6,000, 7,000 years, has employed rituals of one kind or another. And in Buddhism, because we're concerned not so much with manipulation of the external world, but more with control, self-control, and liberation, we use these rituals, the wrathful symbolism and all these things that you find all over the world, not really to try to control others, but to try to control and liberate ourselves. And that's why in this book, everything is classified, outer, inner, and secret, sometimes very secret, because ultimately, we are concerned with the same goal of any aspect of Buddhism. As it said, Dharma all agrees on one point. And that one point is we have one problem, which is self-fixation, if you want to phrase it as a cognitive state, or selfishness. I prefer saying selfishness and thinking of it because I am selfish and because it hurts. If I say self-fixation, it's too complicated for me. What is self-fixation? Selfishness. We all know what that is. We've all felt it. We've all regretted selfish behavior. But I think selfishness is a very key point. That's why in the mind training teachings it says, all the evil and pain in the world comes from desiring one's own happiness. And all the joy and goodness in the world comes from desiring the happiness of others. Now, having said that, we should not neglect, it doesn't mean we need to avoid our own happiness. But if the more concerned we are with the happiness of others, the happier we will be. Because trying to be happy makes us unhappy. It's like the old expression, trying to lift yourself by your own bootstraps. It's self-defeating. It just doesn't work. It's not even a matter of it's bad. We shouldn't try to be happy. That's bad. I'm a bad person for trying to be happy. It's not like that. Buddhism isn't like that. It just doesn't work. Anyway. The concluding activities of the mandala are the following. Receive siddhi incidentally by merely receiving it from the deities and the materials. I have already explained the expanded receiving of siddhi. Present offerings and praises in thanksgiving, as I explained earlier. Absorb the wisdom deities of the supports and the send mandala and those separated for the japa, the repetition. You remember when you separate it into two. Into the self-generation, or enter the wisdom deities into the supports and dissolve the samaya sattvas into yourself as a blessing. It is also appropriate to send them back to their natural locations. The completion stage of concluding withdrawal must be practiced as the yoga between sessions, the yoga of sleep, and the yoga of death. The external environment dissolves into the palace, it dissolves into the retinue, they dissolve into the principal deity, he or she dissolves into their heart life, it dissolves upward into a nada. Nada means sound, but it means the tiniest point of light that's left when the seed syllable dissolves upward. Dissolve that into primordial purity beyond elaboration. Rest as long as you can in the state beyond intellect. This is done at the end of sessions, but it is also how you become absorbed in the stages of appearance, increase, attainment, and close attainment. It therefore corresponds to the clear light of sleep and death. It is a way of preparing yourself for the death process. The stages of the dissolution of your perception of the external world and the state of your body and your withdrawal leading to and culminating in physical death correspond in certain ways to this visualization. So therefore, it is practiced not only to dispel a fixation on the solidity of the deities, but also in order to prepare for death. It therefore corresponds to the clear light of sleep and death. In a less dramatic way, we go through this when we go to sleep. Familiarize yourself with and realize the nature of entering into sleep from the waking state, arising from sleep into the waking state, and entering and arising from the habitual dream state. Now that all sounds very intimidating, but we can make it very simple. When you go to sleep at night, remind yourself that you're your yidam, and then dissolve the mandala of the yidam into you into your seed syllable, whether it's hum or shi or vam, and then slowly, as you start to get sleepy, but before you lose the ability to direct your mind, dissolve that bit by bit upward. And then at the last moment of consciousness, before you enter, hypnagogus, where you're not awake and you're not dreaming, but you're kind of dissolve the nada into emptiness and go to sleep in that way. If you wake up during the night, then do it again before you go back to sleep. And by doing this repeatedly, you will gradually attain at least some level of awareness during the sleep and dream. How much is very individual. I think some of it is based on physical things to our brains. I mean, as Gyamtso once said to me, some people can just practice dream yoga their whole lives and not get anywhere, and other people just get it like that. So it's individual, but there will be some kind of improvement. When you wake up, first thing in the morning, before you do anything, imagine yourself as the deity, as your yidam. Very first thing, before you do anything else, inseparable from your guru. So those are called the yoga, in very simple form, the yoga of sleep and the yoga of awakening or waking up. In any case, when you emerge from that samadhi, arises the deity, the clear light appearing like a magical illusion, and don the Vajra armor of mantra. That means at least the white Om, red Ah, and blue Hum in the three places. And in the case of some deities, there'll be additional syllables called armor syllables. The benefit of that is that it protects you, but it also creates the momentum of inhabiting the body, speech, and mind of the deity, and with those, helping others. As time goes by, know all appearances, sounds, and thoughts to be deity, mantra, and wisdom, clarity, emptiness, sound, emptiness, and awareness, emptiness. Consider all activities, walking, sitting, lying, and standing, to be the benefit of beings and the accumulation of merit. These are extremely important means of implementing the great yoga at all times. Again, it sounds like too many things to do, but actually you can simplify it as much as you need to. As I mentioned in answer to one of your questions yesterday, simplification is always fine. If you respond to simplicity more than elaboration or complexity, then go with simplicity. Elaboration and complexity exist because for some people, they work better. So how do you simplify this? Basically, throughout the day, whenever you have the leisure or opportunity to employ mindfulness, remember you're the yidam and visualize your guru, either in their ordinary form or in the form of a deity above your head. So whenever you're sitting around and you have a moment to reflect, do that. When you are walking, imagine your guru, either as themselves or as your yidam, over your right shoulder. That way, no matter what direction you're walking in, it becomes circumambulation. And you can do this without anybody knowing you're doing it. You can even carry on a conversation once you get used to it. When you eat, or even when you have tea or coffee, you can imagine yourself as your yidam with your guru in your throat. And then the fourth one is an alternative to the dissolving. When you go to sleep, simply imagine yourself as your yidam with your guru in your heart. And go to sleep praying to them. For some people that is easier. For other people, the dissolution is easier. In essence, they're the same, but you should do whatever works for you. So it's very simple. The guru's in 4 places. By day, when you're sitting, they're above your head. When you're walking, they're over your right shoulder. When you're eating, they're in your throat. And when you go to sleep, they're in your heart. At the end, dedicate all roots of virtue accumulated throughout the 3 times as causes of omniscient awakening. This brings a vast accumulation of merit. Viewing the recipients of dedication, all sentient beings, the dedicator yourself, and all the dedicated virtues as non-existent from the beginning, peaceful and inconceivable, will bring an unsurpassable great accumulation of flawless wisdom. We talk a lot about the 2 accumulations. We accumulate merit by doing good things with a good motivation. We accumulate wisdom by being free of fixation on the good things and the good motivation. We have to have a good motivation and we have to do good things, but we also have to not fixate on them. Think of the deities of the complete 3 seats, that is, the aggregates and elements, the seat or area of the Buddhas, the senses and sense objects, the seat of the Bodhisattvas, and the functioning, they're called the functioning powers, which are like your limbs that you can pick things up and walk and so on, and other things. But anyway, they are the seat of the male and female wrathful deities. Those are called the 3 seats. A lot of times in empowerments, the empowerment liturgy will say, now imagine that light from the Master's heart invites the complete deities of the 3 seats into the sky before you. That's who they are. Think that the deities of the complete 3 seats establish utter auspiciousness. The male and female Sugatas, or Buddhas, think of the auspiciousness. The male and female Bodhisattvas cast rains of flowers and sing Vajra songs. The male and female wrathful ones and gatekeepers perform the activities of banishing obstructors and guarding against obstacles. At best, engage in such great accomplishment for several years, continuing a cluster assembly accomplishment until you gain siddhi. So, for example, there was one fantastic master of just after the time of Nupchen's major activity called, what was it? Sochin Shakya Jungni, I forget his name, but anyway. And he used to do great accomplishments of Vajraheruka for a year at a time with his entourage. And they'd spend some time getting the materials together because you need the food, medicine, offerings, everything. And then they'd all go into retreat together. And they would do this again and again and again. And he got to the point where, he could speak to the deity anytime he wanted. And people saw all kinds of things, like he had a statue created and they saw the deity dissolve into the statue and, So incredible persistence. Intermediately, continue the accomplishment for several months, at least by convening week-long accomplishments and making periodic offerings. Yogis will gain accomplishment in accordance with their individual capacities and behaviors. We should not think that because great masters have practiced intensively for their whole lives, night and day, that our doing occasional group practices and some simple daily practice is worthless. It is not worthless. It might be fooling ourselves to say that a little practice will take us all the way. But even a little practice does give us the opportunity for liberation in the Bardo and certainly in future lives. We also have to accept the fact that, according to Guru Rinpoche, practice is worth more now than it was in the old days. His explanation is that in the old days, there were very few impediments to practice. And now there are potentially infinite impediments. And we look in one way, our societies in one way, many of them are prosperous compared to the old days. We have medicine, we have technology, we have iPhones, and so on. And all of these things are fine. They're good. They're not bad. But the problem is that we fixate on our technology. We fixate and we cling all the more because we have more to cling to. And I think that's an impediment. As His Holiness the 17th Karmapa once said, I don't think Milarepa would have achieved awakening in one lifetime if he had had an iPhone and the internet. It is certain that supreme and common cities will arise according to individuals' abilities. Do not belittle the importance of this because of laziness, distraction, or procrastination. Now, one of the things he means by laziness is self-disparagement. Don't think, it's not worth me going to the tzok because I don't really know what's going on. Or, I don't, it's all too, the concepts are too difficult. Or I can't do the retreat because I didn't, I'm not really at that level yet. If you have the opportunity to attend and it works in your life, then indeed, take advantage of it. It is appropriate to quickly and vigorously engage in this accomplishment of the essence. And now, Guru Rinpoche concludes with a summary of the branches or aspects of the Guru Rinpoche practice. The external Guru sadhana accords with the accounts of my deeds as a Buddha. The mandala is that of the Trikaya of he who outshines all that appears and exists, surrounded by the 8 names of the Guru, the 4 who embody yogic discipline, and the 4 Dakini gatekeepers. So those are the deities of the daily practice, and those are also, that is the external mandala of the 10th day practice. So that's who your body is identified with and who's around you. The internal mandala is that of the Guru and Yiram inseparable, the deities of magical illusion, and of the great splendor 8 dispensations arisen as Vijayadhara Gurus, the Trikaya of the Nirmanakaya lake-born Vajra, surrounded by the 8 Vijayadharas who embody the 9 expanses, and by the 4 Ginkara gatekeepers. That is the mandala that's in your head. If you look at the liturgy, you'll see that's who's in your head. The secret mandala is that of the Sambhogakaya Vajradhara, Guru Sri Hiruka Padmavajra, surrounded by the tutoring cells, the father, mothers, and children, and the four Vira gatekeepers with the mother Dakinis. That is the mandala that's in your throat. The very secret mandala is that of Vidyadhara Vajradharma, with the father and mother Vidyadhara gurus of body, speech, and mind, the ocean of siddhas, and the four masters. And that is who is in your heart. In addition to those four mandalas, the external one, and then the three in your three places, in the combined sadhana that we do on the 10th day, you also have a mandala of other gurus, presided over by Guru Rinpoche's root guru Sri Singha, who's now Taisuttu Rinpoche, and in the lower abdomen, the mandala of Dakinis, Yeshit Sojal and her entourage of other Dakinis. It would be excellent for you to accomplish these external, internal, secret, and very secret sadhanas, including all Guru Vidyadharas. Be certain of this, worthy ones. The original terma of Terchen Barway Dorje included 4 separate sadhanas, a sadhana for each of these, plus the one we do, which is called the combined sadhana. It appears that while the lineage at least survived until Lama's grandfather, Karma Thupten, it appears that the texts for the separate sadhanas of the outer, inner, secret, and very secret were lost during the Cultural Revolution. But we still have the combined sadhana, which is, for us, probably as elaborate as we can handle what we do on the 10th day. And that can also be used as a basis for Drupchen or great accomplishment as necessary. We have a template for great accomplishment that can be used with either the short kila or what we think of as the long Guru Rinpoche. The other deity sadhanas, such as the Kachari and Yamantaka and so on, have their own separate great accomplishment templates. After saying that, he sang this Vajra song with great kindness. And this is where he summarizes why to do Guru Sadhana. Worthy disciples, listen, take the meaning of my words. These 6 elements are precious leisure and resources. Human bodies have 6 elements. We have what are the common 5 elements, and also we have wisdom. Now, all beings naturally have wisdom, they have Buddha nature, but there is something very special about the human body for the practice of the Vajrayana. These are hard to get, impermanent and fragile. Right and wrong and cause and result are infallibly true. Know that it is hard to get free from this jail of craving, samsara. If you fear the suffering of lower births and samsara, your best refuge is your Guru. Accomplish and pray to him. The root of suffering is wrongdoing. If you want to purify it, meditate on your Guru. If you want common things in this and all future lives, the pacification of sicknesses, demons, and obstacles, and the increase of life, merit, and wealth, and supreme perfect Buddhahood, if you want these blessings and siddhis, the merit of Guru Sadhana is unequaled by millions of other accumulations. Therefore, take these sadhanas of the Guru Vidyadharas as the essence. If you accomplish the supreme Vidyadhara Guru, Viras and Dakinis will bestow prophecy, Yidam deities will bestow siddhi, Dharmapalas will accomplish activity, supreme wisdom will appear effortlessly. In this life, under your Guru's care, you will definitely accomplish mighty Vidyadhara. Therefore, do this with vigor. After singing that, he sat there with a smile of great joy on the mandala of his face. And that brings us to where we started with the 5 chapters, which complete the text, and we've already gone through them. So let's see what time it is. Oh, we've got plenty of time. So we have 45 minutes for questions this morning, and then any remaining questions and any that come up online we can do this afternoon. So please go ahead.
Thank you. So this is something that I do struggle with in different ways. And maybe it's because I am maybe not at a level where I should be doing this, but I really try and bring my meditative practice into post-meditation. So, and I'm being maybe purposefully, well, not purposefully. This is what I struggle with. If everything is the deity, and then during ritual, especially extensive ritual practice, there is this, there's a recognition of obstruction, and you're putting obstructors into torma, and how do you maintain this perception of everything as the deity?
That's a very good question. And I think it relates to a question that was asked by another one of you yesterday. On the one hand, we have the view that everything is the play of the deity, as it says in our Dzogchen text. On the other hand, we have all these rituals where we talk about this problem and that problem and get rid of this problem and deal with that problem and the 404 types of this type of sickness and the 80,000 innate, all these. So it comes down to the fact that we actually have to remember the truth, but also accommodate the fact that we don't see the truth. Ultimately, obstructors are Buddhas, because we're all Buddhas. So therefore they're included. Ultimately, the worst human being and the worst being in any other realm of existence has always been Buddha. But we cannot ignore the fact that we don't experience things that way. We aspire to experience things that way, but we don't. If I had pure perception, this would be Buddha, this would be Buddha, you'd all be Buddha, this would be Buddha, the brocade would be Buddha, everything would be Buddha. But I don't see things that way yet. So on a theoretical level, we have to accept that there is a bit of a dichotomy between the truth and our perception. And if we try to ignore our perception, we'll be banging our heads into a brick wall. If we forget the truth, whatever we're doing, it's not Vajrayana Buddhism. On a practical level, what may be helpful is to, because you're talking about the threefold bearing, seeing all appearances as the deity and guru inseparable, all sound as mantra, and all thought as wisdom. And that is, as many teachers have stated, that is actually the inclusive essence of all aspects of Vajrayana. But it's also difficult. And the solution to the difficulty may be to adapt how you practice threefold bearing to circumstances, conditions, and what you're doing. And the clue that that may be the answer is the fact that, as you just pointed out, in our rituals, sometimes we say everything is the play of the deity, and sometimes we say, may all sicknesses and obstructors be drawn into this torma and dissolved into space. So we, even in formal practice, we make adjustments. We make adaptations. And we don't want to make things too complicated for ourselves. But if you have a regular routine of life where you have a job, you have the other things you do in your life, socializing, eating, sleeping, and you have your formal practice. And you can adapt the threefold bearing to however it most suits the particular situation. For example, in the four post-meditation contemplations of the Guru that I mentioned earlier, when you visualize the Guru above your right shoulder, you don't have to visualize them above your head or in your heart or in your throat. You adapt it to your needs at the time. If you're sick, you can imagine your root guru in the form of the medicine Buddha, in the form of any deity you want, in the place where you're sick, and focus on that. You can, the reason why we need these means or methods to bridge the gap between what we know or believe to be true and what we are capable of experiencing at the moment.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
What can you describe when receiving siddhi or amrita, what one's state of mind should be? What is the?
Well, again, it depends on how it's received, but let's say it's what we do here. So at the end of Vajrasattva, 5 days, or Yamantaka, 7 days, or we'll be doing Kila and so on. At some point, we all go up, and Lama Trata puts a drop of Amrita into our palm. How complicated you make it is up to you. And again, some people benefit from complexity and elaboration. Other people benefit more from simplicity. But to make it very simple, that Amrita, which has been on the mandala for the whole 5 or 7 days, contains the blessings and siddhi of all of those deities. It does. Whether we recognize that it does, experience that it does or not, is a function of our own state at the time. So the way to receive it is to think of yourself as the deity, Lama Trautop as inseparable from the front generation, and the Amrita that he puts in your palm as Amrita, or the 5 wisdoms and the essence of all the deities in the form of a liquid. It's as though, and in some practices this happens, it's as though the deities melted into a liquid. So you are actually drinking the the deity. And that's different from tsok. In tsok, it's also of the nature of the deity, but you're primarily making an offering to the deities within your body. And when you receive siddhi, you're actually receiving the blessings of the deity.
Can I just ask another question?
Sure.
This is so I mean, I know that I've read it in practices, but it's so beautiful just to think about that as the 5 wisdoms and consuming that, taking it into oneself as the deity. Is exquisite image. This may be a very obvious question, but you do that and you just let it be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the substances that are contained in that Kabbalah include blessed amrita, which means not the liquid, but the little brown pills that are in that. At Lama Chotop's request, I've translated one, and I'm working on the second of 2 texts describing the benefits and qualities of that. I think he wants to give these out as a little pamphlet, because people receive this stuff and then they think, what is this? And he wants people to know. But what it means is that even before that Kabbalah, which contains some kind of carrying fluid, can be liquor, can be something else, and the pills within it, even before that was blessed by a week of Yamantaka or 5 days of Vajrasattva, the pills themselves come from a long lineage of blessing, going back to Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsojo. And they've been reconsecrated and increased in every generation since. So there's the first of these texts is actually a long list of the contributors of the substances that went into the Barway Dorje tradition Amrita, such as the Jawang Kamapa, Chokcho Dechen Lingpa in modern times, and then going all the way back to Guru Rinpoche, the 8 Vidyadharas, and so on. And so what you receive has been blessed, but it's been blessed millions of times.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. The first is just very a technical one. You had referenced the 3 seats, and then you quickly said what they were, but I missed what they were.
The 3 seats are one way of classifying the deities who are spontaneously present within your body. Your 5 aggregates are the 5 male Buddhas. Your 5 elements are the 5 female Buddhas. Your senses and their objects are the male and female bodhisattvas. And your what are called functional powers or abilities, like the ability to pick up and walk and talk and so on, are the male and female evocative deities.
Did I count 4?
Well, that's 3. Male and female Buddhas is 1.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
Punkam Jalveden is 1. And then each of them kind of has 2 aspects, because there are, in the case of the Buddhas, there are the aggregates and the elements. In the case of the Bodhisattvas, there are the senses and sense consciousnesses and their objects. And in the case of the wrathful deities, there are the abilities and what they do. So, for example, my ability to pick up this glass is actually, I can't see it, it's a male wrathful deity. Picking up that glass is the union of the male wrathful deity with its consort.
Thank you. This stuff is amazing. The next question, so you had said earlier that one of the reasons, or primary reasons we do these practices and ritual is to control kleshas.
Well, we do some of the ritual to control them. I mean, basically all Buddhist meditation practice consists of 2 things, shamatha and vipassana. They can be practiced sequentially, separately, or they can be practiced together. The function of shamatha is to, you could say, restrain or control our kleshas and thoughts. But that doesn't liberate them. The function of vipassana is to liberate them. So whether it is Vajrayana practice or practice of the common vehicle or of any Buddhist tradition, there always have to be these two aspects. They don't always have to be practiced together. People can begin simply with shamatha, but for a complete Buddhist path, both have to be there.
Okay. But the reason that I'm asking is, it's funny, I was listening to a talk that you gave 4 years ago, and it was during COVID-ish, and you were very concerned during this talk, and then you said something like, basically like the world is kind of falling apart.
I don't remember teaching during COVID, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it was, and you could feel it. I forgot what it felt during COVID. I could feel it in your voice and presentation. But fast forward to today, and I'm like, boy, those were nice times. Maybe because I kind of knew,
Yeah.
but I'm just seeing so I've, Barter Toko Rinpoche told me, 20 years ago, you need to get a job where you can have a retirement. So I've been doing that and planning on practicing as much as I can. So I got 10 years left. I don't know how much, things are, it's like the house is on fire. So I feel like I have to push myself a little bit. I just don't feel like I have time. I at least have to get myself ready to where in that 10 years I'm ready to be running. So anyway, I'm trying to intensify my practice more. So with this, these practices and the Vajrakalaya retreat coming up and these types of things, should I be thinking about these, primarily as a way of kind of dealing with, helping me better deal with this insanity that appears to be captured everybody's minds and then their actions? I mean, it's really just very disturbing. Or is it, should I expect it to somehow remedy in any shape or form this external manifestation of just people's kleshas? I just don't want, I just want to I just want to do what's going to help me and everyone else better. I just want to make sure my perspective is kind of correct on this.
I think that the worse things get or appear to be, we need to remember, and I'm quoting Lama Totop here, that's basically what I do. I mean, I quote people, I still think of myself as a translator, so when I'm so-called teaching, I'm basically just saying things that I had the great pleasure and honor to hear teachers say. So Lama Totop said that we need to remember that the external world is always a reflection or a mirror of our state of mind. By doing that, we take responsibility for our own actions. And it also helps with what you were asking about yesterday, which is the danger of dualization, of friend and enemy and everything that goes along with that. That being said, so that's quoting him, the best advice that I've received in addition to that is that the worse things get, or appear to be, because things have always been bad, there was never a golden age. I mean, it was wonderful when the Buddha was alive and so on, but in most of the world things were unbelievably horrific. So, We have to take that in context. But the worse things appear to be getting, the more we have to return to bodhicitta. I think that especially during this time of such strong feelings and polarization now all over the world, we need to remember that these deities that we meditate on, their tranquility in the case of when they appear peaceful, and their power when they appear ferocious, fierce. They're not really wrathful. That's actually a misnomer, because wrath is just a fancy English word for anger, and they're not angry. Then they wouldn't be deities. But their manifestation of power or tranquility, or some combination of the both, is the embodiment of bodhicitta. And when we imagine ourselves as a deity, especially when we try to cultivate the threefold bearing of all appearances as deity, all sound as mantra, and all thought as wisdom, the best place to start with all thought as wisdom is bodhicitta. Because somehow bodhicitta seems to be the most effective single way for most of us of dealing with our problems. And it's also an excellent remedy for the type of dualization that you spoke of yesterday. I'll use myself as an example, primarily negative example, but anyway. When I get sick, physically sick, or terribly anxious, or both, the only thing that helps me, aside from praying, is to bring to mind the fact that right now, at this moment, countless others are going through whatever it is I'm going through, and far worse. One of the things that does is it releases me, at least temporarily, from the feeling of victimization. Why is this happening to me? Well, it's not just happening to me. It's happening to lots and lots of people, whatever it is, and far worse. And then, if I cannot try to fight the pain, or the discomfort, or the anxiety, but simply make the prayer, this is okay. I don't mind if I feel this bad. But I don't want anyone else to ever, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, no matter what they're doing, I don't want anyone else, anywhere throughout the universe, to feel this bad ever again. Now, when I do that, I still feel sick, you know. I still feel pain. I still feel anxious. It doesn't get rid of it. And I can't do this to get rid of it, because that won't work. That's still selfish. But it takes a little bit of the edge off the selfishness and self-preoccupation that I at least give rise to when I feel that I'm suffering intensely. So I think that in these days, we need to think of whatever practice we do, whatever ritual we engage in, whatever meditation we engage in, whether it's Mahamudra or Dzogchen or the preliminary practices or deity meditation or the 6 dharmas of Naropa, whatever it is, as the cultivation of bodhicitta. And I'm not making that up. That's what Lord Gampopa teaches in the Jewel Ornament, that you take the Bodhisattva vow and then you cultivate bodhicitta, you train it, you develop it through the practice of the 6 perfections. And if you think about what the 6 perfections are, the Vajrayana practices that we do are very effective, practical means of practicing the six perfections. It's almost like the Mahayana is this amazing painting that's in outline, and the Vajrayana is the paint that fills it in. That may not be a good analogy, I don't know. You know, it's how to do the Mahayana as best we can, I think. So I would say go back to bodhicitta.
And just one follow-up on that, you know, when I practice bodhicitta and open my heart, and I've heard it described as like you need to have your heart big enough to contain like a horse race, you know, just all of this, just all this stuff, internal, external, your family, your friends, everybody around, just all of that. And maybe these Vajrayana practices can somehow enable you to stay there and be with it and not turn away.
I think so. I think so. I think that they give you the blessings of the gurus and deities to, within your limitations at that moment, or whatever the situation, to do at least a little bit better than you could otherwise.
Thank you.
Naomi, do you have some questions?
And actually, this is a very good follow-up question to
Okay.
this. So, Peter Elias, any advice on how to learn to love oneself, avoiding self-fixation or selfishness?
Well, I think we have to start by asking ourselves the question, what has selfishness ever got me? Has it ever made me happy? Has it ever made me help others? And we can be as specific about that as we want. We can actually think about our life and the decisions we've made, including those selfish ones. And, you know, ask ourselves, what has it ever got me? Okay?
Okay, well, I've got one more, sir.
Sure, go ahead.
Then. What exactly, so this is Nick, what exactly is being asked when imagining one's guru as Vajradhara? Is the key thing to focus on the fact that the Buddha nature of the gurus is inseparable from that of Vajradhara?
In part, yes. But also, the guru will have developed some actual wisdom. It could be perfect Buddhahood, it could be something short of that, but they have wisdom that makes them a reliable embodiment of Vajradhara. So we all have Buddha nature, but we're not all reliable. The guru has Buddha nature and is reliable. Yesterday I quoted Barway Dorje as talking about why the Buddha is a reliable teacher. And what makes the guru reliable, whether they are a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or whatever, is they are at least able to show you everything that Vajradhara in person would.
I had, I guess, 3 questions. I'll start with the first, simplest one. Is it possible to attain or at least slip into samadhi just by doing basic shamatha.
Yes.
Okay. What exactly, I kind of know the definition of samadhi, like just deep focused concentration.
Well, samadhi is one of the mental formations or samskaras that is, if I remember correctly, present in any intentional action. So, for example, when I choose to pick up the glass and drink some ginger ale, there has to be a continuity of focus between my deciding to do it, reaching out, grasping the glass, bringing it to my lips, drinking, and swallowing. I think that there are several factors involved in that. One is smriti, or recollection, which is often translated mindfulness. Another one is what we translate as meditative stability, samten, which is also the word that became Zen in Japan, from chana. Dhyana in Sanskrit was transliterated or pronounced in China as channa, and then shortened in Japan from Chan to Zen, or pronounced that way. So, and that's because that tradition places a great emphasis on meditation practice. So, to some degree, these are faculties that are innate, that we already have. For example, when you lose the faculty of memory, what we call mindfulness, smriti or drenpa, actually means memory. So I remember that I wanted to do that. I remember what we're talking about. And when someone loses their memory, that's what, in fact, a part of what is lost. And that's also why, for example, when you're sleeping, normally or typically we don't have mindfulness or alertness and so on. So, but we use the terms samadhi sometimes very stipulatively to refer specifically to what's called the yangdakbe tingenzin, or the perfect samadhi, which is the last of the 37 factors of awakening and the 8th of the Eightfold Noble Path. In that case, we're talking about something that, from our point of view, is tremendous. But samadhi per se is simply a sustained, a kind of sustained focus. But there are many, many different samadhis, even on the mundane path, that we would consider astonishing and amazing. And then the supramundane samadhis of arhats and bodhisattvas, and you can't even talk about what the samadhi of a Buddha is because it's inconceivable. But those things are obviously far more profound, far more powerful than what it takes for me to drink a sip of ginger ale. But certainly, shamatha practice can lead to certain states of samadhi.
Thank you. My second question, I guess it's a little more complicated. How exactly does bodhicitta keep us alive?
Keep us alive? How do you mean keep us alive?
I've heard it, some other teachers say that bodhicitta is, if we did not have it, we would not be living, like physically.
Well, I think that's probably, that could be referring to absolute bodhicitta, or which is Buddha nature. But if it refers to relative bodhicitta, I think the idea is that bodhicitta, in the Buddhist tradition, relative bodhicitta, is very clearly defined. It has two aspects: compassion focused equally on all beings, or we can just say focused on all beings for now, and wisdom, focused on perfect awakening. These are called the two parameters, or you could say dimensions of bodhicitta. If your aspiration is to benefit anything less than all beings, that is not the bodhicitta of the Mahayana. And if your aspiration for the benefit of those beings is anything less than bringing them to perfect awakening, it is also not the bodhicitta of the Mahayana. So it is the wisdom or knowledge of knowing that the only remedy, ultimately, for the suffering of beings is the achievement of Buddhahood. And it is aspiring to bring that remedy to each and every being. And since you have to have achieved either Buddhahood or something close to it to do that, you wish to achieve Buddhahood yourself. Therefore, you generate the intention of bodhi, or awakening, the mindset, which is citta. So relative bodhicitta starts with the intention or aspiration, and then also includes everything you do, such as the 6 perfections and so on, to fulfill that aspiration. When it's said that we all have that innately, I don't think it means that we actually have full Mahayana bodhicitta necessarily. I think it may be talking about the fact that no matter who a being is or what they are, they have an innate capacity for love. The traditional analogy is, they say, even a tigress loves her cubs. And so we all have this innate within us, so it is not so much creating something new as expanding it, freeing it from the dualism of friend and enemy, and coming to accept the fact that nothing short of perfect Buddhahood is a real and lasting remedy for the plight of all beings. Other than that, I don't know what they meant.
Thank you for that. I'll have to let that sink in. My final question is what you were saying and what also Lama Chatab was teaching and many other teachers about the guru and the importance. I feel as though there's just still much I don't know, but in terms of the guru, you have like heart gurus, you have root gurus, and you have all these other things. What I feel as though like I'm really missing, there's so much more to it. Like, what is really the guru?
Well, that's a very good question. And we can, gurus can be divided or classified in different ways. Basically, there are 4 types in the Kagyu tradition. It's the easiest classification to use. In the Nyingma tradition, it involves very details of whether you receive empowerment from them, or advice, or you go to them to confess, or what, that's a lot of details. But basically, we can follow the Kagyu classification is, in a sense, the most profound. First, we need a person. So that's called Kunzang Palchen Ling, which means it's a person, in our case is a human being, who holds a lineage, has received the lineage and is authorized to transmit it. And the reason that we need a person, I mean, there are many, many reasons, but the simplest way to look at it is that if it's not a real person, they can't call us on our stuff. You know, at times in our lives, we need feedback. Now, if you're a bodhisattva, you can, I guess, get that feedback from the Sambhogakaya Buddhas. But I can't. I need someone who will give me correction. It's not about punishment or negativity, it's about correction, advice. And then the other thing about needing the personal guru is, and it's related, is we can't interpret, initially, we can't interpret or make sense of most written Dharma. We don't know what to emphasize. There are statements by the Buddha that appear to contradict one another. They don't, and all kinds of situations. We don't know what to practice. We don't know what to do and not to do. We don't know how to practice nowadays when the Buddha taught, almost 3,000 years ago now. So the starting point is we need a human being. We need a person. The second aspect of the guru is what we receive from that person. And that's Deshikayi Lama, the guru who is the Sugata's teachings, the Buddha's teachings. Now we couldn't understand them, or I couldn't understand them without personal gurus explaining them to me. But once they have, we can review them, deepen our understanding, ask questions of the personal guru. It doesn't mean that the personal guru is disposed of. We still need them. But they open up a whole world of teachings to us, the Buddha's teachings. They give them to us so that they are ours to study and practice. They're not something that we find in an archaeological site or in a university library. Well, in some cases now we do actually find them in university libraries because they have wonderful preservation of Tibetan texts. But, not just that. So the speech, the teachings of the personal guru manifest as their teachings, the Buddha's teachings, and everything in between. But remember that all of the Buddha's teachings, some of the commentaries were written as writing, but most Buddhism consists of transcripts. This is a transcript of a talk Guru Rinpoche gave to his disciples. If you read the beginning and end, it makes it clear. So it has to start with a person giving oral guidance. And then you can record that and review it. Now, as you start to feel more gratitude for the benefit you receive from practicing the Buddha's teachings, which you received from the guru, the person, it starts to change how you see things. So, for example, you may notice impermanence more. You may see the relationships between things more. You become more aware of your own problems that need to be worked on. That's the third guru, Nomadai Lama. Appearances as the symbolic guru. And at that point, you start to be able to see the teachings, not just in your guru's speech, not just in books, but also in the world. around you. And then the final Guru, Tatuk Dunje Lama, the ultimate true Guru, is your own Buddha nature. But you can't discover, apparently, I don't think anybody's ever done it, Buddha nature without the first three. So those are the four gurus. That's what a guru is. Okay, I think we should. So we'll conclude for this morning. Does anyone here have further questions for this afternoon? Would you like to come back? I mean, we're scheduled to. And or are there questions showing up online? Do you want to just eat lunch and then go home, or do you want to come back at 2 and take more questions? Okay, so we will then. And that's okay. If anyone doesn't want to, then but because I've finished the topic, but what? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we'll dedicate the virtue. Hosanam de yedam chezing banye dane nyembe rana bamjene jenga na jembala romaye simben zole rowa ro Gewan de ye jewogun Sunam Yeshe zon de Sunam Yeshe le jonwe Damba gonye damba jo Jangzhe zem nirim boje Manje banam je jorje Chema nyamba me badam Kone gondo bawajo Semjen damje de dan den jorje Ngendro damje dan do don bajo Jangjo zamba ganda zajoba Deda gonje malandro bajo Sangje rigje zen dambengar Jangon de jando do ling paye Zamje me jonje bezong aje Si shin jon dar jabe na ji sho. Thank you.